When you receive your machine, the first thing that you'll need to do is install your adjustable feet in the 4 places in the legs. The other 3 have been installed, and I'm installing the 4th one. Once you have completed that, make sure that your leg with the tube holder is pointing inward towards the machine, and set it just like this on top of the table. And once you have done that, we can install the 2 bolts through here. After the 3 bolts have been installed, tighten up the lower bolt, which will be laying close to the junction box on the center of the table, which should be laying closest to the table. From there, we'll take your arm adjuster and slip it through, putting a thrust collar on it, slipping it all the way through the machine. And from there, we'll take your torque tube and align it on the 2 bolts and begin to thread it on to the torque mechanism. As you center it on the 2 bolts. After assembling the torque tube, the 2 bolts that are sticking out needs to have a washer and a nut on those. Once the nuts and washers have been installed, you can tighten these 2 up. Repeat the process on the other side of the table. After tightening the 2 bolts on both ends of the table on the torque tube, then you can tighten these 2 bolts on this end of the table and then on the other end. After you've done that, take your thrust collar that should be placed in between here and slide it up, making sure that this side is tight against the top and making sure this one's snug against the top but not real tight. Simply tighten the collar up on it. At this point, you're ready to roll your machine up on its feet. And by just simply grabbing a hold of it, and rolling it over. After the table's been installed upright, you can slide your adjustable arm side stabilization brace up into position, centering the hole, placing the bolt into the hole on both ends of the table, and tightening both of those bolts up. The next step will be to install your torque arm and take the washer and ensure that it goes in between the 2 pieces of metal like this, and then it slides into this hole, and then this bolt goes through there. Take the nuts, install them, and tighten them up. Make sure that the bolts are not completely tight and that there's still some looseness in them, that they're snug. Generally, I snug them up and then back them off just slightly to where they're easily turned. The next step will be to install your batting tube in the lower portion that will hold your roll of batting, and it goes in just like that. And then we'll take the number 3 tube, sliding it through this bushing, slightly wiggling it as you go, and then setting the other end down on top of the standoff. And from there we'll take number 2 and set it into place. And it simply stays there so that you can lift this in or out to check your batting and smooth it out. The next step is on your number 3 tube, install the bolts into the pillow block assembly and tighten the nuts up on the lower end of that. Next, you will take your carriage and place onto the table, ensuring that the longer end is away from the 2 tubes that are already on the table. And just merely set that on the table, ensuring that the wheels are on the track, and then picking up your machine and setting it on. Ensure that while the machine is on the tracks that it will roll off until you put the number 1 tube through the throat. So have an assistant hold on to the machine to keep it from falling off the tracks. And now, taking number 1 tube with the bigger handle on it, take it and thread it through the throat of the machine, placing it into the pillow block on the other end. And then installing the bolts on this end. Next, you'll take your brake mechanism, putting it through the hole, tightening the nut up on the other end, and taking the individual clamps, which will put a slight tension on your tubes, wrapping them around. You can change the amount of tension by where you locate the Velcro pieces on. And that completes that operation. First, you will place your cone of thread on the spool holder and then go up to your first thread guide and place it through, coming over to the top of the machine and threading through this spool pin. The next step is to go through your 3-holed thread comb, starting at the top, going around, going back through, and lastly through the last 3rd hole. After going through your 3-holed thread comb, you'll go through the thread guide above the tension assembly. You'll go around the tension assembly, ensuring that it's in between the discs and not simply around them. And you will go up through the check spring and then around the tension arm, back through the thread guide, and then up through your take-up lever. After threading through the tension assembly, then you will come up to the take-up lever and thread through it. After going through your take-up lever assembly, the next step will be to go through the thread guide on the lower body of the casting, and then through your needle bar thread guide, which is right there, and then through your needle, threading from the outside towards the throat of the machine. Ensuring that your thread always the tail of the thread is always pointing towards the throat of the machine. On the oiling of the machine and installing your bobbin case, take your bobbin case and install with the slot up, sliding it in till you hear an audible snap, like so. Then you know you have the bobbin case entirely into the machine. On oiling of the hook, you can look and see that there is a inner stationary part and an outer rotating part. Where those two parts come together is where the machine needs a drop of oil, right in this area. One drop of oil every 8 hours of operation. After disconnecting your electrical connector, you can remove the head cover by the means of 3 screws. The other 2 have already been removed, and the head cover comes off. And then the oiling of the machine is simply 1 drop of oil in the needle bar oil cups, and then a drop of oil on all the moving mechanisms of the assemblies. It's real simple just to turn the machine through, and if it moves, it needs a drop of oil. If it moves or slides on any kind of a mechanism, it needs a drop of oil. And then finally, a drop of oil into the oil cups. And that's the oiling of the head of the machine. This is the bobbin winder that you receive with your quilting package. To operate it, simply put your foot on the foot control and wind your bobbin. This basically shows how your thread stand goes on to it. As the bobbin gets filled, it's approaching its stop speed or stopping point at this time. That is basically the perfectly wound bobbin, not too far beyond the rim. It's very important that your bobbin be properly installed in the bobbin case and with the proper tension. When the bobbin case is properly tensioned, you should be able to bounce the bobbin with it suspended, and it should let the thread out. This one looks a little tight, so Kelly will adjust it a little bit. Now when she bounces it, it's letting a little thread out. She may need to adjust it just a small amount more. That's proper. It will let the bobbin down, but it will catch itself after the bounce. As she pulls the bobbin thread out of the case, the normal, standard way to put that in there is the bobbin will turn backwards from the thread pulling. It turns backwards from the way it looks like it should unwind out of there. That is proper. We have found that sometimes if this gives you problems, turning the bobbin case over will help. And now Kelly will show you how the bobbin case, the tension assembly on the bobbin case itself, to make sure that you get it underneath it. She'll remove the bobbin completely and install it in the bobbin case through this cut, and then it will snap over just like that and be underneath the tension discs. Also, after some hours are put onto the machine, ensure that some lint can get underneath that tension piece that she just put under.
lint will build up underneath there, giving you no tension. So in years to come, keep that in mind, that that can be the source of some problems. Generally, you can lift that up with a fingernail and blow the lint out and your problems are gone. In the case sometimes there is a phenomenon known as freewheeling, and it will give you bobbin case breakage. We recommend cutting a piece of batting that will act as a brake so that when you stop your machine, the bobbin will not continue to keep spinning. You simply cut a little 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch square piece of batting, fitting it into your bobbin case, and then placing your bobbin in there. This will give you a braking action, which if you incur bobbin breakage, this will solve most of the freewheeling problems. As you prepare to use your quilting machine, first find the center marks of the canvas attached to the quilting poles. These marks indicate the center of your table. We recommend you using some practice material for your top and your lining. Fold your material in half to find your center and make a notch in the material to mark the center on each end. Do this on both the lining and the top material. Your lining will go on quilting pole number 3. Match the center notch on the canvas with the center notch on your material. Start pinning in the center and work towards the outside edges. Make sure your pinning is straight and neat, placing the pins about a 1 inch apart. Roll your fabric onto the quilting pole, smoothing it out as you roll. Neatness and tightness is very important. Repeat this process on quilting pole number 2, the middle pole, for your top material. Make sure your material stays centered on the canvas while you're rolling. If your material starts sliding to the right or left, push it to the center to correct. While you're pinning your material and lining onto the canvas, push your machine all the way to the right or left and use your adjustment clamp to hold it in place. This will keep the machine out of the way during this process. Now that your lining and top material are pinned, roll your batting out across the table and measure your width and cut it to fit. Pull batting under quilting pole number 1 and line it up with your lining on the table. Pull your batting down out of the way. Bring your top material down and line it up with your lining and batting materials. Find the center point notches on the top and lining materials and align with the center mark on the canvas on quilting pole number 1. Pin all 3 layers to the canvas on quilting pole number 1, starting in the center, working outwards. Smooth and straighten as you go, putting tension on the top and bottom material as you go. You also have ratchets and levers on quilting poles number 1, 2, and 3. These will do the tensioning of the quilting poles. Working with these, you will find the correct combination for tensioning your quilt. Use your edge stabilization clamps attached to the side of your table to stretch and tighten your quilt to its maximum. In the event you are working on a larger quilt, simply wrap the edge stabilization clamps around the side boards to take out the slack in the elastic and clamp to the quilt. At this point, you are ready to begin quilting. We recommend using a scrap top and bottom piece of material to begin. Two very important things to look for. Make sure your quilting pole number 1 is spaced correctly from your sewing machine bed. There should only be a slight gap between the machine bed and quilting pole number 1. If there is not enough space, your machine will be difficult to move, and if there is too much space, your material will be off the bed of the machine, causing incorrect stitching. You want to make sure your quilting material is not too high off the machine bed. The easy way to solve this problem, should it occur, is to lower your quilting pole number 1. You will need to loosen the knob on the steel arm adjuster. Remember to hold your hand on top of the sideboard, applying pressure. Without pressure, the sideboard and quilting pole will have the tendency to fall backwards. If this is not satisfactory, raising up to the next hole on your metal uprights may be necessary. This shows the correct position of the material in relation to the bed of the machine, with a finger's distance between the number 1 tube and the bed of the machine. You are now ready to place your quilting pattern underneath the plastic on the table. This will keep your pattern flat, as well as keeping it from moving. Before we begin the machine quilting demonstration, let's go over a checklist for proper sewing. Make sure the needle is installed correctly and tight. Make sure your machine is properly threaded. Make sure your bobbin is full and has proper tension. This is your on-off switch lever. Turn your hand wheel to the left or counterclockwise to pick up your bobbin thread. Remember to move the machine as soon as you press the start switch. Before practicing with a pattern, we suggest you get the feel of the machine by moving it from right to left without following the pattern too closely. Just watch your needle, moving it around, doing circles or other movements, getting the feel of the machine, how the machine moves on the material, and how the stitching looks. Sew a short distance and then observe the bottom threading. If your stitching on the underneath side is loose, you may need to tighten your top tension. To set the pointer on the machine to your pattern, bring your machine to the center of the table. Make sure the needle bar is not closer than 1 inch from the front quilting pole. After setting your needle bar, release your presser bar. Now go down to where your pattern is and take your pointer and adjust it to where your pattern is on the table by loosening the wing nut that holds it in place. When you think you have it set, maneuver the machine and observe how the machine moves according to the pattern and quilt. For example, the reverse loop pattern. You want the same amount of loops on one side of the quilt as the other. When all looks well, go to the right side of the table and start quilting. First, you must determine the proper speed to achieve the proper stitch. If the machine speed is slow and your movement is fast, you will produce a long stitch. We will demonstrate that at this point. Kelly's moving the machine fast with a slow motor speed, and that will produce a long stitch. By watching the movement of your needle, you will get the feel of the actual speed to obtain. You can increase the speed of the machine through your motor and increase the movement of the machine to produce the same stitches per inch. If your machine speed is set on a high speed and your machine movement is slow, you will produce very small stitches. When thread breakage occurs, the first thing to check is that your top tension is probably too tight. Loosen your top tension approximately a half turn. And then check your bottom stitching. This is sometimes normal from quilt to quilt due to the density of the fabric, to have to adjust your tension assembly. Again, Kelly's running the machine with a fast motor speed with a slow movement. Which will produce a small stitch, which is unacceptable for most quilting projects. On the next row that Kelly does, she will run it in the normal operation. You will find as you get the feel of the machine, an average machine speed with average machine movement produces the stitch you want to obtain. The row she will run now will be the normal stitches with a normal machine movement. Which is approximately 9 stitches per inch. Again, this is another row of normal machine movement with normal speed. The first row we are looking at represents a slow machine speed with a fast movement of the machine. This will produce a long stitch, which will cause some thread breakage. The second row we're looking at is a high machine speed with a slow movement. This will produce small stitches, which will also cause some thread breakage. The third and fourth row is a normal speed with a normal movement of the machine, and this will produce a normal stitch, approximately 9 stitches per inch. Find your speed control mounted on the electrical junction box. To adjust the speed, simply adjust the knob. You can produce the perfect stitch with any speed on the machine as long as you correlate the movement of the machine with the speed of the machine. Also, don't run the machine lower than a number 4 setting, as this will do damage to the motor and machine. With some trial and error on your part, you will soon determine which machine speed is best for the speed of movement you feel comfortable with. With the correct combination of machine speed and machine movement, you will soon produce the perfect stitch. This is why we, in the beginning, suggest practicing with scrap material before trying to run the machine on an actual quilt. When you're using a connecting pattern, such as the cloud, roll your number 1 tube till you barely see the last row. Set your machine needle on top of one of the last clouds. Go to the middle of your quilt and adjust your pointer to the very bottom point of the cloud. At this point, you can go to the right side of the quilt and begin quilting.
On all of the pillow blocks, there is some slop in the pillow blocks because of the size of the hole in them. To make sure that your ratchets latch, you can slide it fore and aft to get your ratchets to lock the way they should. Generally, it's pushing them forward towards the latches and then simply tightening the bolts. If your machine's installed or equipped with the channel lock device or the locking device, it's simply you grab a hold of the handle and squeeze it in and then push the pin in to lock it. You can also, and then to release it, you simply undo it and let loose of it. The other thing you can do is what we call lock it on the fly.
which is not using the pin, and just, if you're going on a squared quilt, you can just lock it, let go of it, and move it in another direction, and then lock it again. And now we'll demonstrate to you how it will channel quilt. And to do your second row of channeling, you just come back to the front, lock it in the position you want. And there's the finished product on the channeling. Next, we'll show you how the laser works, and we'll quilt across the quilt using the laser. Okay, we've ran our first row of the tulip pattern, and now on some of these patterns, like the tulip and the rose, you may want to stagger your patterns, and the way we used to do it was by sliding the pattern back and forth. And with the laser, we're able to just adjust the laser to do setbacks and staggering of patterns. And we'll show that to you now. And we have not adjusted the laser yet, but we will set the quilt where we want the next row to go. And then we adjust the laser down to the bottom and center of the next row. And then we'll quilt that row. And this shows you the staggering of the tulips across the quilt instead of all of them in the same row. And the laser can help you do that. Hi, I'm Stuart Plank. I'm the owner of A-1 Quilting Machines. We'd like to thank you for your purchase of the A-1 long arm. We're going to go through the steps to putting the machine onto the table at this point. Begin by taking your carriage and with the long end, put that towards you, towards the electrical receptacle on the machine. And it sets on there like that. Once you have that, you can grab the machine by the handles and with an assistant have them thread the machine through the tube, so to speak, and set it on the track, ensuring that the wheels are on the track and that it rolls good. The first thing to do is to take your power cord and plug in to the central location of the electrical box, which is on the underside of your table. When you plug it in, ensure that both of these switches are pulled back in the off position. And plug it in. Once you have plugged it in, this is your main power supply. The red tip switch is your laser. Upon coming to your machine, there is a phenomenon that is common to all quilting machines with the dual handle setup, in that the switches sometimes get pushed. And you want to just turn your machine on and see if the motor runs. And if it does, turn it off quickly, and I'll demonstrate this. I've turned on my machine and there's no rotation of the motor, which means both of my switches are off. Sometimes with children, these switches accidentally get switched and you will not know it. So it's a good idea to leave this off unless you're running the machine. Now I'm going to show you what will happen if you don't do this. I have pushed this switch once and I'll turn it on, and I sense that the motor's trying to run. So I will push the switch once and see if that fixes it. And it does. That tells me that it's off. I'm going to go through this again and show you how to do it, because you've got two switches on here and occasionally you won't know which one is on. So I'm just going to turn both of these on several times, and I'm going to turn my machine on. I sense rotation, so I push this button once and turn it back on. I still have rotation, so I'm going to push this button once and see if it goes away. It does, so I'm going to push this one again. Now the machine is dead. There is an external switch for the light switch as well as through the main power switch. If your machine is equipped with a needle positioner, the way that you can operate that is by merely centering the quilt or the machine over the spot that you want to begin, and by pushing the red tip switch away from you and holding it until the needle stops, that will pick up your bobbin thread. Pull it towards you and hold it, and that will pick up your bobbin thread. Move your machine out of the way
and that will allow you to pick up your bobbin thread. From there, just reposition the machine over the center of that hole where you want to start the quilt, and then push on the positioner again, and that will lock one stitch and leave the needle down in the material. Some people like to operate this, and it will operate in a different way when I show you, in that it will do approximately 2.5 stitches and stop. So it's a neat way to lock your stitches in before you begin your quilting, and you do that by simply pushing on the switch and letting loose of it. And that will lock your stitches in. At that point, you can go over to the other button pushing it on and then pushing it off to stop it, and then pull the switch again and then again away from you, and that will stop your needle in the up position. From there you can go on to the next section of the quilt that you want to quilt.
Go over some troubleshooting questions that will be helpful to you. Always check these items while sewing, and especially before calling a mechanic. The problem: upper thread breaks. Possible cause: the thread wrapped around one of the following: the cone of thread. The thread can wrap around or under the cone to give breakage inconsistently. Make sure your machine is properly threaded and the thread cone and thread guide is directly above the cone. Second possible cause it could be is the threading is incorrect. Check your threading thoroughly. The third item it could be is the thread has jumped out from between the tension discs. Make sure the thread is between the discs and not wrapped around the outside edge. The fourth possible cause is an inferior thread. Try a new cone of thread. A note: beware of colored thread and age of thread. A high quality thread is very important in a quilting machine. The fifth item it could be is the needle is burred or bent. Install a known new quality needle. The needle is installed incorrectly. This could be your sixth item. Review your manual illustration or the video demonstration to ensure that you have the needle installed properly. If all of these items check out okay, the seventh item that could be your possible cause is the top tension is too tight. Loosen your top tension assembly a half turn and sew a short distance and check. If it's still breaking, try another half turn. As we mentioned earlier, due to the different materials that you'll be using and the density in the fabric, some slight adjustments of your top tension assembly will be necessary on any quilt that you do. The eighth problem on thread breakage could be the thread is too large for the diameter of needle. Try a larger needle. If this doesn't work, try a smaller needle. The ninth problem, the possible cause, could be a broken check spring. Check that this spring snaps back. If Kelly will pull on the thread, you'll show how to check on that. You can see the actuation of the check spring. The 10th problem could be sharp edges on the needle hole. This will cause the thread to be cut. Smooth the hole with fine sandpaper. This gets cut from previous needle breakage or coming into contact with the outer edge of the throat plate needle hole. The 11th cause could be a sharp edge on the hook. Always disconnect power to your machine and feel the edge of your hook with your finger. If you feel any burrs, be very careful and smooth this with fine sandpaper or an emery stone. A sharp edge on the hook generally denotes a needle breakage has occurred. It may be possible that you have to get the machine retimed at this point. The 12th probable cause for thread breakage is sewing on double knit. This is difficult for customers. The quilting machine, to sew properly, try a ball tip needle or use a soft monofilament thread on the top and a poly cotton thread on the bottom. Or try the quilt top on the bottom of the frame and the lining material on the top. For our next problem you may have is lower thread breakage. The possible cause could be defective thread being used. Try a new thread. The second cause is lint buildup in the bobbin case. Clean the bobbin case out, especially under the tension spring. Lint will build up here. The third cause could be the bobbin case is bent, cracked, or has a burr. Repair or replace the bobbin case. The fourth item could be the bobbin is wound too full, uneven, or too tight. Wind the bobbin evenly. Fill to below the rim and adjust the bobbin winder to kick out below the rim. The fifth item could be the bobbin case is incorrectly threaded. Check the threading in the manual illustration or review the video. The bobbin inside bobbin case is freewheeling. Try turning the bobbin over in opposite directions. If problem still persists, cut an 1/8 inch square piece of batting, slightly larger, and place inside the bobbin case before bobbin insertion. This will act as a brake. Make sure the bobbin case tension has not changed dramatically from putting the piece of batting in there. If it's done properly, it will not. The seventh item we can have is the bobbin outer edges are nicked, bent, cracked, or have burrs, causing the bobbin to not turn freely. Replace the bobbins with new or non-damaged one if this is your problem. The 8th item might be the bobbin tension is too tight. Loosen the tension slightly and check sewing and readjust as needed. The next problem that we may have is the underside of the lining shows loops. The possible cause could be the bobbin is installed in the bobbin case improperly. Check for proper tension. Check your manual illustration or review your video demonstration. The second item can be the bobbin thread jumped out of the tension spring. Check to see if this is causing no tension on the lower thread. The third item can be lint buildup under tension spring on the bobbin case. Clean lint out and recheck for proper tensioning. The fourth item can be the top tension discs have an accumulation of lint. Clean in between the discs. This will not be a problem till you have several hours on this machine. The fifth item could be the top tension is too loose. Adjust the top tension in half-turn increments, sew a small distance and check. Readjust if necessary. The next problem you may have is the top of the material shows loops. Possible cause can be loosening the top tension or tighten the bobbin case tension. The next problem is skipping stitches. The possible cause can be the needle is installed incorrectly, crooked, not completely in. Check needle installation for manual illustration or video demonstration. The second possible cause it could be is the needle is bent or burred. Try a new needle, ensuring that you install it properly. The third possible cause is the thread fell off of the take-up spring. Check your threading. The fourth possible cause is the machine is not threaded correctly. Again, check your threading. The next problem we come to is needle breakage. The possible cause can be the needle is crooked or loosen the clamp. Tighten the needle, clamp screw. Ensure that your needle's all the way up in the needle bar. The second possible cause is the needle is too light for the material. Use a bigger needle. We recommend size 18, but don't go smaller than 16. We also have customers that like a size 20. The third possible cause for needle breakage is the operator is moving the machine too fast for the speed setting. Move the machine slower or increase the speed setting to solve this problem. The fourth item that may be a possible cause is the wrong needles being used. It's the wrong length. Check with a known correct needle. The correct needle for this machine is a 135X7 size 18, also known as a 134R-110. The fifth possible cause is machine has jump time from a previous needle breakage. The machine will need to be retimed. Some of the tips on the quilting table itself is too much tension on the top and bottom material will sometimes cause problems with the stitching. Kelly will show you the amount of deflection in the quilt. If you get it too tight or not tight enough, this will cause your stitches to not come out and will cause some thread breakage. Relieve the tension on your quilt rack overnight if it's not completed.
This shows the proper relationship of your hook timing as it comes installed from the factory. As you can see, the needle's coming up and the hook is passing by on the scarf of the needle. This is your starting point for your timing. From here, very small, minute adjustments of your hook to land on the scarf of the needle lower or higher by very slight adjustments is where this relationship will like to be. Normally, right where this is set is where they like to sew the best. In the event that you jump timing or slip the hook on the shaft, this is where your timing should be placed back to. And again, it's with the needle coming up, forming a loop, and the hook hitting the scarf of the needle. Most of the time, the needle bar will never move from the factory adjustment. It will always slip, if it does, on the hook assembly. So the hook in relation to the needle should be basically the thickness of a paper away from the scarf of the needle.
We hope this video has answered any questions that might arise with your A-1 quilting package. Whether you're a beginner or an avid quilter, the A-1 quilting machine is easy to operate and will provide years of quilting enjoyment. Thank you for your purchase.
When you receive your Circle Maker combination crosshatch, these are the parts that will be included with it. The first operation that you'll need to do is to pick up one of these and attach it to your laser slide that connects between the wheels. That is done by loosening the nut, and placing it onto your laser slide. Once the nut has been started, you can tighten it up. And when completed, it should look like this. The straightness of this piece will help you make the Circle Maker move smoothly. And then tighten this up. It does need to be very tight on the back side. Once this has been installed and tightened up, you can repeat the process for the other side of your machine on the other side with the wheels. To assemble the 45-degree maker, you will start with the T-bar with the latch on it. You will place that just like it is on the table. The longest piece goes with this hole into there and can be set like so. The piece that is thick, that has a spacer on it, will go right here. Like so. And then the bolts will simply, the biggest bolt that there is will go into this position. The shorter threaded bolt will go in to the skinnier part of this. And just screw that in. And then the knob with the longer thread on it goes in to the center portion of your T-bar. And that can be screwed in. This can be adjusted to where, with it locked, that it will adjust to 30s, 45s, and 60s. To assemble your crosshatcher to do the opposite side, you simply loosen this knob, removing it. This one you can leave attached, but loosely. This one you can take completely off. Slide this over to that side. Assemble your nut or your knob. And then you can just merely flop this over, like so, and reconnect it. And this will give you the 45s going the opposite way. When you receive your circle maker, one of the parts that's included in it is the sticky tape with the graduations of 1 inch. That will stick down on your table on the same side of the machine as the electrical control box and the motor on the back of the machine, which is the same side that has the gap in your plastic patterned cover. And you will stick that down the entire length of the table. That will give you the graduations that you need to do the circles and cross hatching in a uniform manner. This is the locking mechanism that is part of the circle maker. To engage it, you simply throw the lever like so. This is simply just another view of the crosshatch and how you will place it on your table with the T-bar of it squared up against the track, and then to lock it into position, you throw the lever. This shows one shot of the operation of the diagonal maker. And I'll run the machine now. And that will give you some idea of how it works. To do another row, and if you want to use inch spacing, you can just simply move this an inch with your needle up, over, lock it in place, and then start your machine and come back the opposite way. This shows a different angle that shows the pointer running against the bar to do the 45s. To do the opposite side of your cross hatching, you simply reverse the arm like was shown before, and you use the pointer on the opposite side of the machine to complete your cross hatching. This is the circle making device which goes into the T-bar, and this bolt screws in to the middle hole. With the circle maker installed, you simply take the pointer and drop it down into the hole that you want for the particular diameter that you want. Lock this in place by means of this locking mechanism, the knob. Lock your stitches in and turn the machine on, and when you do, you can go around in a circle. And this is what the finished circle will look like. This shows you the correct timing and this should show the air gap between the needle and the hook with a piece of paper inserted behind it to give you a little bit more vision of it and show you the daylight between the two. To install your jack screw, it will come to you assembled like this. And what there is this piece is a lock collar. You will remove it off. And then there'll be a washer, a needle plate ring with little bitty bearings in there, and then another washer. The same thing will be on the other side, a washer, a needle plate, and another washer. You leave these three on, remove these three, take it, and put it through the hole, and then place a washer, a needle plate, a needle bearing, and another washer, and then a lock collar on, letting it drop through. Start it into your actuator nut, which is down below on the adjusting arm. Crank it in till this comes all the way down. While it's threading into the actuating nut. Once it's all the way down against this piece of metal, take the lock collar, the washer, the needle plate, and the other washer, and push it up against there, and then tighten the lock collar. And that completes your installation of the jack screw.